Folks, the eviction crisis is here. The housing crisis is here. And it looks much different than it did in 2008. So let's talk about housing. Let's talk about the eviction crisis. The summer's housing market is really split into two right now. On the one side, according to the Washington Post, you have cell phones ringing off the hook right now. Realtors are super busy. We're in the middle of a housing boom as people are trying to buy as many houses as they can find. They're getting into bidding wars, going out to the suburbs. Houses are sitting on the market for a record few days before they're sold. People are getting into bidding wars, so those prices are being driven up. Housing prices are rising. Appraisal numbers are coming in higher across the country. But when I say it's a tale of two different economies right now, the other side of this is all of those renters who can't afford to pay their rent, and all of those people who can't afford to pay their mortgages are now facing the loss of their homes. We're seeing a huge jump in those mortgage forbearances right now. We're seeing about an 11% increase in mortgage forbearance for those jumbo loans. People just simply can't afford to pay them. And guess what? Those moratoriums, those times for those loans are up. The moratorium on those things, the forbearance has lifted, and now you're expected to pay. And now here we are at the beginning of August, just a few days into August, and the rent is due. The moratorium is up in many states. Now, certain states have taken it upon themselves to extend it for a few weeks, but the federal moratorium is up. And guess what? The federal moratorium only backed, I didn't know this, but the federal moratorium only backed those loans that were Fannie and Freddie based loans. Did you know that? I didn't. There's a wide swath of loans that aren't covered by that. That means that there's going to be a huge impact on those people that don't have those types of loans. It's completely uneven right now. The moratorium only covered tenants in buildings with federally backed mortgages. States that passed their own eviction limits, but some, such as Texas, have already let them expire. Another sign of things to come, attorneys in Houston are seeing long lines at courthouses. And I don't know if you've experienced this. Let me know in the comments if you've been already through this or not. And they're seeing long lines at the courthouses. Sometimes the attorneys there are saying people are standing shoulder to shoulder, awaiting their eviction hearings. They're stuck between tenants who can't or simply won't pay up, and the banks that still expect mortgage payments every month. And landlords are also feeling the squeeze. Like I've said before, don't vilify landlords in this situation. That's a huge mistake to do. I know maybe it's the populist thing to do is to vilify landlords, but most landlords are not wealthy. They have one rental property, and very often they have a mortgage on that rental property. So what happens, it's not the tenant's fault that they've lost their job, but it's also not the landlord's fault. Now you have this whole cycle. So you have the tenant that can't pay rent, and then you have the landlord that can't pay the mortgage. Or the taxes that supports the city. And guess what? State and local governments are collapsing right now with revenue. Sanitation workers being laid off, city police departments, firefighters that rely on those property taxes to keep it going. Hassan Minhaj did a really excellent report on this on his Netflix show, Patriot Act, a few weeks ago on the eviction crisis. And he talked about that extensively. And he talked about the domino effect of what happens during these eviction processes. And it's not just those that get evicted and lose their home. It's the landlord. It's the city. It's all of it. How is Congress so ignorant about this? I don't understand. Has anyone, we saw during their tech hearing last week, they didn't even know how the internet worked. Or do we really expect them to understand how this entire process comes together in one cohesive ball? And that's how we thrive as a country, when all of these pieces work well, when the tenants are able to pay their rent, when the cost of living is not out of whack. We have an affordable housing crisis in this country, so the cost of rent is exceeding what people are able to take home in their paychecks. Landlords can't pay their mortgage, so we go into forbearance. The banks then don't want to lend to other people because now they're sitting on all these foreclosures. State and local governments can't provide the basic services that we need, like sanitation and other things, because they're not able to take home property taxes to pay their rent, to pay their paychecks. So they're furloughed. It's all one big ecosystem. And Congress is allowing it to collapse. The Senate Republicans have better get their head examined, and they better get their head examined fast. This is a disaster of epic proportions. I'm not being hyperbolic here. I mean, we are about to see a homeless crisis. 30 million people could be out of their homes in America. You know, people want to joke about liberal San Francisco with the homeless population there being out of control. Guess what? It's going to start happening all over the country. You can make fun of liberal San Francisco all you want. It's going to start happening in conservative Houston and conservative Oklahoma City and conservative Little Rock, Arkansas. Now, this looks a lot different than it did in 2008. It's much different. In fact, it might be the exact opposite of 2008, because foreclosures then soared and single-family homes stood empty out in the suburbs, and everyone kind of fled to the city. Now, there's an undersupply of suburban housing, and everyone wants to get out of the city and go out to the suburbs. And there's hot market in new construction right now. That's off the charts. We don't have enough homes in this country. The problem today is that in the cities where the pandemic has accelerated, there's a crisis of affordability. So you have higher coronavirus in the cities, plus the housing prices are way out of whack with what people make and earn. And now they're being forced out, and you're going to have this massive commercial real estate collapse in these big cities. In 50 of the biggest cities, you're already seeing it. According to the Wall Street Journal, without income, renters can't pay rent, utilities, without monthly payments, landlords and other companies can't make mortgages and bond payments. Housing costs in cities have been approaching a crisis, of course, for years. Thanks to the pandemic, that crisis is here. And now, as the Wall Street Journal says, as the Atlantic reports, it's dangerously close to spiraling out of control, totally. Fannie or Freddie Mac skyrocketed with their number of forbearances. Many high-income borrowers are in trouble too. So it's not just low-income borrowers, it's high-income borrowers too. As of mid-June, 11.8% of all jumbo loans went into forbearance. Wow, 11.8%? That's twice as many as in April. You know, there's a simple reason for this unevenness of the housing crisis right now, and it's the amount of money that people take home. And so you want to talk about wage inequality in this country, let's do it. The median income for home buyers in this country today is $93,000 for home buyers, while renters are substantially poorer, and household earnings there are about $35,000 a year. And they've been hit hardest by their lost jobs. Those service sector employees, those people that work at the restaurants and the hospitality industry, these are the people that live in homes that are paying rent right now, a huge swath of them. And that, my friends, is what's causing this problem. Now, House Democrats have passed the HEROES Act. Now, I'm not praising this bill in any way. All I'm saying is there are key portions of it that I think are significant to keep us out of a major housing collapse and crisis beyond where we already are. They asked for $200 billion, both for rental assistance and another $100 billion for mortgage forbearance assistance for those landlords that haven't been able to pay their mortgage right now. That would allow these tenants to get caught up on rent. It would keep us from having these homes go into foreclosure, banks not wanting to lend as a result of it, people able to put food on their table and provide, housing for their families. We need food and shelter in this country. And here we are, the richest country in the world, and we are looking like a third world country right now. And you know what's sad is that many third world countries during this pandemic have handled this better than we have. Fact. We're looking like a bunch of babies right now. We better get our act together on this, and we better get it on it fast. But I've been saying that for 2 months. And Mitch McConnell and the Senate Republicans have been concerned with other things, and they've admitted that up to 20 or 21 of their senators wouldn't vote for anything right now. But they're okay every year passing a $900 billion defense budget so we can get jet aircraft, so that we can go kill somebody on a camel in Afghanistan. I'm sorry that this is all starting to sound like a redo of the 2000s when we went through the housing crisis. But it's different. It's totally different. It's the exact opposite. The difference now, though, is that we have an ability to stop it. The United States government could step in and instantly, in one day, could stop this thing. Now, thank you so much for subscribing to the channel. Make sure that please you smash that like button if you'd be so kind. Let's see if we can push this up to 10,000 likes on today's video. That'd be a nice goal. And also, please, please, please subscribe to our free morning newsletter. It's totally free. It's delivered to your inbox first thing every morning. Totally free. You can read it in about 5 minutes. It'll give you the news that I think is important to start your day, plus a little bit of humor.